Hi. Over the next couple minutes, I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of the photography of Robert Freeman. Bob Freeman may not be a name that you're familiar with, but I can guarantee, in fact, I'll bet you a pint of Guinness or a cup of coffee, but a pint of Guinness, redeemable at the Colonial Inn post-COVID, that you have spent more time looking at his photography than you can imagine. And you probably have some of it in your home right now. So just by way of background, I spent 24 years working in Spain, living in Spain. My wife is from Madrid. We brought, as a family, with our 3 children, we moved to Germany. My task was to restructure a fine art insurance company, the oldest one in the world at the time. I do that. It's been now 15 years running multinationals. I'm getting fed up with it. I bail. We move back to Spain. I take a year sabbatical. I fly, I get my sailplane license. We have our 4th child, who is currently class of 2021 at CCHS. And then I decide it's time to get back to work. I'm introduced to a photographer, Bob Freeman, who's looking for an agent. And make a long story short, I became his sole agent worldwide for the next couple of years. Bob started his career in the London Sunday Times. He was born in '36, is just at the right age when the wave of American jazz hit London and absolutely fell head over heels with artists the like of John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, Cannonball Adderley. And that is reflected in most of the work for his first 10 years. A lot of black and white photography, typically very up close and gritty. Fantastic qualities to it, very much in a live setting, and a vibrancy that caught a lot of people's eye, including a couple of musicians I'll refer to in a moment. But as you can see, he kind of takes a very varied approach to it. He's not reluctant to use filters or Photoshop, as long as it's used organically. He covered a lot of the prevailing musicians, artists, actors, in this case ballet dancers. For those of you who wondered who shot JR, here's proof. It was Robert Freeman. Sammy Davis Jr., one of my favorite photos here. He was my favorites of the Rat Pack, and it's just a brilliant way of portraying him. Bob's girlfriend, when we were all coinciding in Spain, was a dancer for the National Ballet in Spain. These are some of the photographs he took with pretty stark settings, very dramatic salt cliff settings in the south of Spain. Here's a first clue as to the how to come full circle with your recordings at home of Bob Freeman's. These people need no introduction, but were prevailing artists at this time. This is Patty Boyd, she of Layla. You can read up on that. Silver gelatin photography, which was absolutely fantastic, fascinating stuff. And then, of course, now we get to the Beatles. And indeed, if you have not had, seen, owned, listened to any of the recordings associated with this photography, I really feel for you because you missed out on a lot in your childhood, but I doubt any of you have missed out on this. As with many things in life, his work with the Beatles was a mixed blessing. It took a toll on his personal life. That said, it also boosted him into the superstar ranks as a photographer. Sadly, Bob passed away a year ago, so he won't be forgotten. Bob is a good friend, fantastic photographer, and just a wonderful human being. He didn't particularly care for the Beatles' music. He was a jazzer, and he felt that they were basically just these kids playing pop. But where it took him is a whole nother place. Where it took me is, as a 12-year-old kid in the mid-'60s, the first album I ever received from my dad, who has gone to the U.S. on a business trip, came back and he brought me the Monkees album. And it's still a guilty pleasure of mine, admittedly. But the second album I ever received was Rubber Soul. And to think that, the hours I stood just gazing at that wonderful photography, that cover, and listening to the music, getting in my DNA, and then to realize that 35 years later, I'm working with the photographer who took that. I mean, it's a blessing, it's a gift. And I've received so many gifts in my life like that. I mean, life is miraculous. I hope it is for you as well. These are kind of difficult times to be positive and buoyant, but don't give up the faith. Don't succumb to the negativity. There's a lot of good out there, and there's a lot of good happening, and there's a lot of wonderful things awaiting us. Amongst which, maybe a pint of Guinness, which hopefully I'm not buying because you did listen to the Beatles, didn't you? Meantime, enjoy the rest of the reunion. It was great catching up with you, kind of virtually. Bye.